Lito's defense attorney has a difficult job in front of him, and he approached it, I thought, pretty well today. Let's talk about that. Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. One of the things that you have to be very careful with when you are taking the testimony of any witness is to not be a bully. And that's because juries don't like to see people pushed around. So when you take on someone who is hostile and who you believe is obviously lying, there are not a great number of ways to go after that person that involve a kind approach. But there is still a way to get to the meat of what you want to show the jury if you know how to ask questions and if you know how to illustrate the ridiculous by being ridiculous. And that's what we have today. So, this is a case where Raul Lito Valley is charged with murder and assault. And his group of people came by a party after there'd been a fracas at another place. They came by essentially to continue that fracas. And they went back to the party after I should say, strike that. Initially, when they arrived, their car was surrounded, people pounded on it. There were some pretty ugly things said. They drove off, then they drove back, then they drove off again. Then they stopped at the end of the street, and several of them came back. And the people who were at the party went and left to meet them about halfway, basically to tell them that they weren't wanted at this party and to move along. If that had been the end of it, there would not be any reason to have a trial because nobody would have been hurt. But the problem with teenagers when they've been drinking, and particularly when they are male teenagers who are sort of inculcated in the sports world where aggression is usually channeled into things like football and sometimes basketball, they tend to see things as black and white, and they also tend to put a high value on being respected, or maybe the better way to say that is not being disrespected. And that's sort of what we have going on here. So, what the prosecutor here has done is laid out how this particular witness, Tommy Connery, he was stabbed in the course of all of the things that happened that night. He wasn't fatally stabbed, obviously, because he's testifying, but he got hurt. And so you have to be careful going after somebody like that because they already bear the wounds from what happened that night. And for that reason, if you attack them again, the prosecutor's just going to get up on closing and say, you saw the defense. He wasn't happy with just stabbing the guy, then he wanted to slap him around all over the courtroom. For that reason, I think the defense attorney did a really good job with this part of his cross-examination. Let's watch.
Do you know Tanner Chernowski?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Tanner Chernowski?
We grew up playing football together when we were young.
Now, when he asked that question, I immediately started wondering if we were going to go down the 20 questions of all the people he knew, the way some of these examinations have been done. But he surprised me. He simply wanted to point out that he knew a lot of the people here at the party.
Did you see him there that night?
I do not recall seeing him, no.
You don't recall seeing Mr. Chernowski that evening?
No.
Do you hear him in the video that we watched of the fight?
In the video?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you hear him doing in that video?
Saying, yes, sir.
Do you recall hearing him say that when the fight was going on?
No.
So, Mr. Hines and Mr. Marcinzik show up with your brother around what time?
I would say 9:30, 10-ish.
And once they arrived, shortly thereafter, you learned that Mr. Hines claimed that he had been jumped over at a party earlier that night at 5 Lazy Brook Road, right?
Yes, I heard that.
And what was the reaction of the folks in the basement at that point?
Who did it?
I'm sorry?
Who jumped you? Why were you jumped?
So they started to ask, who did it?
Yeah, who and why?
Okay. And then once they asked who did it, shortly thereafter, they started texting the people that they thought did it, correct?
That's what I heard, but I did not know that night.
You didn't see anybody texting?
No, I did not know there was
You
a
didn't
text thread.
hear from anybody that, hey, we're trying to get these kids to come over here?
No, I did not know that.
You didn't see Griffin Marcinzik taking a photograph of the address and sending it out on a group chat?
No.
Did you see Griffin Marcinzik that evening?
Yes, I did.
What did you see him doing?
He was in the basement hanging out.
Just hanging out?
Yes.
You didn't see him on his phone?
I mean, everybody's always on their phone. He was probably on it. That's what I thought.
Did you see him on it?
Not that I recall, no.
And you don't recall Mr. Marcinzik, Mr. Hines, your brother telling you that they were texting with these kids that they claimed did this to them?
No, I did not know there was a text.
Did you hear from anybody that they were trying to get these kids to come there?
Not that I know of, but probably, yeah. I'd say that.
What do you mean, not that you know of, but probably, yeah?
That people were talking about that there was something going on, but I didn't know exactly that they were getting them to come over.
What did you think they were talking about when they said something was going on?
I was staying out of it. I'm not involved in the younger kids' situation.
That was just the younger kids' situation?
It wasn't my friend's situation, no.
The other kids weren't talking about this as well?
They were not talking about it, no. They heard about it, but they weren't going on about it.
And so it was a surprise to you then when the Honda Pilot showed up outside?
Oh, yeah, it was.
Nobody was outside waiting at that time?
Not that I knew of.
And you heard that the car had showed up, right?
Yes.
Who did you hear that from?
I don't recall who.
Just someone said the St. Joe's kids were outside, right?
They said somebody was outside, yes.
Right. And someone said that, but you can't tell us who that was.
No, I don't know who.
How did they know to look outside to see that somebody was out there?
It was probably a
Objection
related.
was to- It's speculation.
Sustained.
Was anybody looking outside to see if there was a car arriving?
Objection.
I know
Does
of.
he know?
It's been answered, and it seems sufficient that he didn't know. I'll allow it to stand.
So you don't recall who said someone's here?
No.
But then everybody got up and went outside as a group together, correct?
People went outside, yes.
Well, you say people went outside. Who went outside?
I don't know exactly who, but people went outside.
Who was in front of you?
I don't recall.
Was there someone in front of you?
I don't recall.
Was there someone behind you?
I don't recall.
Was there someone to your side?
I don't recall.
Did you walk outside by yourself?
I walked outside.
By yourself?
I don't recall.
You do recall that there was a group of you, and you said at least 10 people were by the car and 10 people were in the driveway, right?
Yes.
But you don't recall who any of those people were.
I don't recall who I went out with, no.
These were all very good friends of yours that you had grown up with and played sports with since you were little.
Yes.
You can't recall who any of them were.
It wasn't important to me at the time, so no.
Wasn't important to you that your brother was going outside towards this car that you didn't know anything about?
I didn't know my brother was going outside.
You didn't see your brother outside?
No.
You can't tell us anybody that you saw outside.
There's people outside. I don't know the specifics of who was where and what was what.
How close was the nearest person to you while you were standing in the driveway?
Probably me to the judge.
And there were 10 of you in the driveway?
About, yeah.
Who were the other 9?
I don't recall
Objection. That's
exactly.
asked and answered.
It has been asked and answered, counsel. I'll sustain the objection.
So one of my commenters on another video said that this has been the I do not recall trial. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. People who are asked uncomfortable questions like, where'd you get the beer, suddenly had a loss of memory. And what the defense attorney here is doing is he is calling into question whether or not this gentleman is a reliable narrator. Can you trust him for his version of the facts about what happened? Because clearly he's not recalling a bunch of things that were happening, or he's recalling them in a way that is immensely favorable to the prosecution. So the purpose of when you have a client like this who clearly was involved in a fight, there could be a valid self-defense claim, I guess, if you look at it the right way, or they can get the evidence in that shows it. But at the very least, what you're trying to do is minimize the believability of all of these witnesses. And that's why there was an attack the other day on the kid about what he remembered, and now you're having this attack on this kid about what he remembers. And you have to give him a little bit of credit because it's 3 years down the road. I don't remember what I had for lunch a week ago. I sure as heck wouldn't remember what happened 3 years ago unless it was really traumatic. And of course, being stabbed is sort of really traumatic, and that's what happened to this kid. So you would think he would have a pretty clear memory of all the things that happened on that night, but it seems that he only has a clear memory about the things that actually help the prosecution and not about the stuff that helps the defense. So that's going to be argued at closing. Will it be enough? I don't know. Uh, that's something that the jury is going to have to try and, put a value on and evaluate. But again, part of the state's process here is to put on as many people as possible who saw some part of this so that certainly not everybody got together and lied about Mr. Valley. And I think that's going to be the approach that the state's going to take. And the main issue in the case, I believe, is going to be who was the aggressor. Was Mr. Valley just coming back peacefully to talk about what happened, or was he spoiling for a fight? And when he ran back and got the knife, was he trying to defend himself and his friends, or was he just really ticked off and he wanted to, you know, get some vengeance on the people who were pounding on him? That's going to be the issue in the case for the jury, and I suspect I know how it's going to come out, but I have to give kudos to the defense attorney. He handled that very, very well. This guy is a victim, so you can't get up there and beat on him. So instead, you ask him question after question that he can't recall the answer to, and then you tell him, "Look, you went to high school with all these people, and you can't tell me who you were with. Does that sound right to you?" And of course, it's not going to sound right to the jury either. They're going to look at that and go, yeah, the kid's probably covering for somebody. Whether or not that is material to the outcome of the trial, I don't know. But the defense attorney is doing a reasonably good job here. And I wanted to highlight that for you. That's what I have for you today. That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.